Hey, somebody want to take minutes tonight?
I'll
yeah,
go
good.
ahead and take that.
Thank you, Phil. All
I'm still feeling the pain from last time.
right, so I will share my screen, and we'll just take a look at the agenda.
We should be live.
Okay, great.
Good.
So we'll start with public audience. Do any of our guests have anything they'd like to report or question or discuss? Nope.
Just here to see what Sustainable CT update is.
All right. So we'll move on to the minutes, which I believe I also have here. Bob, I thought they were great. I think, did everybody get them? Maybe Amy not.
Yeah, you want me to forward to Amy? Well, it doesn't matter because you weren't here, so you're probably not going to vote on.
I was just about to say, I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
Did anybody have any? I had one thing. What was it again?
If they're too good, then I really screwed up because you'll make me do them again.
It was just. Oh, okay. It was under update on climate emergency resolution. Mark had a meeting with the BOS. I had a meeting with Tom Roy, Eric Wellman, and Maria Capriola.
Okay. You want me to make that correction?
Yeah.
I still have the source doc open, I think.
Okay. Other than that, is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
I'll move that we approve the April 14th minutes as amended.
Is there a second? I'll second it. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right. So update on sustainable CT. I don't think there is a lot to report. We talked about at our last meeting that the probable course of events will be to combine the Sustainability Committee and the Clean Energy Task Force and possibly recycling into a one body called Sustainable Simsbury. That will, I think, will bring some advantages and some challenges. And one thing that I want to do is I want to have a conversation with the folks in Fairfield. We know the people that run the Sustainable Fairfield team, and they're rock stars. They get an incredible amount done. They've done solar on schools and carports, and they run multiple solarized campaigns, and on and on and on. And they basically have subcommittees for energy and recycling. So we'll probably evolve to something like that. And I think one thing we should do at a future meeting is take a look at the Sustainable CT action list. Our certification was in 2019. So I think it was spring of 2019, and it's good for 3 years. So if we want to keep our certification or not lose it, we would need to reapply, recertify next spring. And that's actually going to be, I think, a pretty tall task, because I think a lot of the activities you can't automatically roll them over. So we'll need to be updating some things, and several are under the whole clean energy renewables space. So why don't we plan a future meeting to go through those actions in Sustainable CT? You can all feel free to go to that website. It's an awesome website, actually, Sustainable CT, and look at the action list. And I think it's category 6 or 7 is mostly about energy. So we should plan I think as we do the energy plan, it would make sense to kind of pick some things that we can get credit for sustainable CT.
Mark, I have a question.
Yeah.
I know Sustainable CT. I actually was part before it even existed because I used to work at UI and I was in the energy efficiency world there, and Sustainable CT was founded at that point. And my question is, I don't remember if communities pay any money to be a part of it, or if it's just signing on the dotted line. Okay.
Yep.
So it's signing on the dotted line. These are our commitments. This is what we want to do. What it does do, I guess, is allows you to potentially go for grants and other things. Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to refresh.
Yeah, and part of what we were talking about doing on the sustainable committee is get the word out, because there may be all kinds of groups in town doing things like pollinators and bicycle events and things, recycling, and they don't know that they could get these matching grants. And the way they've set it up is pretty cool, where they have this crowdfunding website, Patronicity. And so they make it fairly easy for you to crowdfund your first half of your money, and then Sustainable CT will match the second half. So part of what we want to do is kind of let people know. So if any of you are aware of, it could be, there's a wide range of, of activities that would qualify for sustainability, from energy to transportation to water to land use to culture, housing. They've expanded some stuff, and a big focus on equity. So the sustainability committee meets next week. They're one week apart, and feel free to join us. Let me just do one thing since we're talking about sustainable CT and the website. I think we may or may not have looked at this before, but if you go to the website and go under About and go to Participating Communities, there's this map and there's a list of actions down here. So Category 7 is renewable and efficient energy infrastructure operations. So let's say you want to explore Action 7.4, increase the use of renewable energy in municipal buildings. And you're looking for ideas, you're looking for resources. So you click on that here and then filter. And then you will see what towns did that action. And you can click on a town and get their report, which has got the PowerPoints, the contracts, the memos, the invoices, all kinds of stuff. So it's a huge source of information about this pretty wide variety of actions. And you can see this is what we're talking about. Business culture as well. Business sustainability as well. And there's a fairly broad category, innovative strategies and practices. So any questions or anything else on sustainable CT?
I'm just a little fuzzy on, so I think at this point, what we're trying to do is decide whether or not, or try to figure out if we want to re-up, because there's a re-upping that needs to happen. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Yeah, and that's not really, Amy, that's not to us at this point, because right now we're separate organizations. So there's a lot of co-membership.
Oh, it's the other one.
Right, it's Sustainable CT Committee.
Okay.
Amy, can you, well, I don't mean to interrupt the train of thought. Can you give me your email so I can include you in this revised minutes thing?
Oh, sure. It's A McLean, AMCLEANSALLS, A McLean Sauls at Yahoo.
Yahoo?
Yahoo, yes.
Got it. Thank you. Sorry, guys.
Amy, I'm thinking I want you to introduce yourself. I was going to wait till Tim joins on so everybody can hear, but I think people should just know a little bit about your very rich background in this whole space. So, but let's wait till Tim joins us.
I actually know Tim, so he's less of a mystery to me. So my background is that I've been living in Simsbury since 2001. My ex-husband actually grew up here and living in Terriffill, where I live right now. And we have two sons. They're 25 and 22, and my younger one is going to be graduating on Saturday from college.
Yay.
Yay! And then, but I think more importantly for this conversation, I've been involved in the town of Simsbury for a long time, and I was the chair of the Democratic Town Committee for 6 years, and I just resigned last year, and Lori Fernand is now the town committee chair. But within that, I also served on the zoning commission for 4 years. And so that's my town sort of experience, and my professional experience in energy is that I work for Acadia Center. I am the Connecticut director and senior policy advocate. And it's been for 3 years that I've been there, and it's the job of my dreams. And at, you know, in your 50s, when you get the job of your dreams, you're really doing well. So I really love that. And I felt as though it was time for me to re-engage within the town in a way that I thought maybe could be helpful. And I've known Mark for a long time now, because Mark is one of the most sort of prolific volunteer kinds of energy and most effective people on the statewide, and everybody knows him. So he doesn't get paid to do what I do. I get paid to do what I do, and he does it because he believes in it. So I'm really in looking forward to being a part of this group and helping where I can help. I do have a lot of access to a lot of resources and information, but I think most important is the fact that we're really trying to do this as a group together in town. So I think Simsbury is one of the better kind of, I think, more well-regarded towns when it comes to energy and sustainability because of the work that Mark has done and others and you all have done. And so I'm proud to be a part of your group now. So that's my.
Great. Well, thank you. It's and you're what's your official role in the Energy Efficiency Board?
Oh, I'm the vice chair of the Energy Efficiency Board.
Yeah.
And the chair of the residential committee of the committee of the Energy Efficiency Board. So I really do get paid to do great things, and I really appreciate that. So we rely on, I personally rely on the input from stakeholder groups like ours here for us to make better decisions at the Energy Efficiency Board level in the state.
Yeah. Well, and I know people have people feel your presence, your new energy you bring to a lot of these things. So, and you worked for one of the utilities way back.
I did. I worked at UI for 5 years. It wasn't by choice. I actually, sorry, it wasn't. I worked for the National Center for Healthy Housing, which was it's a national nonprofit. And my grant ran out, and I had been doing some work locally here in Connecticut with the larger organization of the federal organization. And I was like out of a job. I was like, okay, being out of a job, not a good idea. So I went to UI and I said, hey, how you guys doing? And they were looking for somebody to run the business sustainability challenge at their organization, at the utility. And so they were like, yeah, you would never work for us ever, but now you will. So I got a job with them. The downside of that job was that I had to drive to Orange, Connecticut every day from Jericho.
Oh,
for 5 years. That was the downside. The upside is that because of my sacrifice to do that, but also work for them, I have so much of a better understanding of maybe the work that we need to do in the state. So you have to give up something to get something, and that's just the way it is. But that's what I did. So I've been in the belly of the beast. I have.
Right. That's a lot of dots to connect right there. So. Great. Well,
They're
we're
not
really
all bad people. They just
no.
of course not.
No, they're not.
Well, we're really lucky to have you on the task force.
I feel very welcomed, and I feel so grateful to Mark and to Phil, who I've known for a long time now, who's run for office a couple times, and anybody else who's really giving of themselves right now in this town. We are a very vibrant town, and I know that for sure. So we're lucky.
Great. I think then, unless anybody has any questions for Amy, I think the next thing on our agenda is the Board of Ed. And I think where Bob left off in the minutes is pretty much where we stand. The Board of Ed they have an RFP for solar on the high school roof. I think he said it should go out sort of second half or end of May. Timing is such that they probably will not be able to get bids and get a contractor on board in time to apply for this last round of ZREX. So that's unfortunate, but I think the good news is the Board of Ed is really committed to this now, and they talk about not only the high school but every roof now that they're replacing. They're going to get plan for solar.
They saw the light.
Yeah,
God, how many years did we fight with them over this?
yeah.
This is wonderful.
So
And
the
Mark,
resistance,
I give you a lot of credit for that.
Well, I know
the
you've been whispering in that.
resistance was what? I mean, I'm just asking the
Oh,
resistance.
you don't, it's a long story.
Well, I can guess, but if you had to sum it up in like 5 words, what was the resistance?
So let me try that, Mark. 5 words. Well, that's just not how we've done it.
And I think the people who had that attitude are not there
Right.
anymore. So
Right.
The people
Can't touch our roofs.
Okay, and I'm working on trying to elect different people to the Board of Education, just so you know, for that exact reason.
Great.
This was less the board and more the staff.
Right. Hey, Tim.
Hey guys,
What's up, Tim? Dude, when those yellow glasses pop in, it's just like a breath of fresh air.
Bob, I just got 3 new pair.
Oh,
So
my God.
we've got orange, we've got mirrored, and we've got gray.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I really like that presentation. I didn't get to listen to it because we were doing standardized testing, but I was reading the dialogue on the side. So
Which the
Okay.
one I sent out?
yeah,
Amy, I'll send that to you as well. You might be interested in it. It came out with the minutes. It was a Lucky Strike Extra.
Yeah, I look forward to listening to that. Tim, I think you know everyone, and I don't know if you had heard that Amy McLean is now a member of the task force. So I think you two know each other.
We do.
how's it going?
Yeah.
Hello.
How you doing?
Great. We got 2 under 2, so we're just a happy-go-lucky family of 4. One's down, and the other one's really down.
Wow.
So-
Oh my God, look at that. Oh,
Oh, beautiful.
No.
amazing.
Beautiful.
So that's what we're doing.
Great. So the other good thing about the Board of Ed is that they seem to be committed to also doing building renovations in a high performance way. And, the budget for Latimer Lane was approved. So they have said that, they would like us to be involved in those discussions and make sort of energy at the forefront. I hope we get involved in time. I mean, there already is a budget for it, and that scares me because that means there are probably some plans somewhere, and it's hard to change them once they're set. But
Who do you ask?
but we're in conversation with them, and I think now that it's the last time I asked, the message was, let's get the budget approved and then let's talk. So I think we're going to want to be at the table, and as they do a major renovation at Latimer Lane, that's done to a really high performance and maybe even net zero.
So Mark, I think your concern is a good one because there was an amount of money that was approved by the referendum.
Right.
And as we know, investing in clean energy retrofits on these things costs more money a lot of times, even though it's the right thing to do. And it's for the future. So my question is, if they don't have enough money within the referendum, is there any way that Sustainable CT or any other ways we could raise the money to give them the cushion to be able to do the good things? And is there a way to do that?
Yeah, I don't know the answer. My guess is Sustainable CT, wouldn't be able to put money up at that level that we're probably talking about here. I know there's a lot of state funding for schools, and there are pretty high performance standards anyway. But Yeah, I share your concern that who knows how much, how far along they already are.
So I don't think this is really extremely helpful, Mark, but I'm going to just say it anyway. We were way behind the power curve when it came to the junior high.
Right.
We are less behind the power curve at Latimer, and we need to be in front of that power curve in any other building renovation that goes on, because I mean, the junior high was an enormous opportunity that we totally missed, and there's a lot of reasons for that. The Latimer, they still have opportunities to make decisions where they shift the CapEx around and look to benefit from the OpEx. Now that's like something that I'm not privy to what they've planned, but I'm hopeful that there's still room that if we engage now, we may not be able to get it to like a net zero kind of addition, but we may be able to get it better, right? Because there's going to be some leeway. We do this, we don't do that kind of thing. It's not optimal, but I think with your engagement, I've spent some time with Matt on this topic, and I know you've been involved at the board level and the staff level, and they know now, and they're on board. And we've turned that corner where now it's not like, oh God, these CTF people are coming at us again. Now it's like, oh wait, we have a resource, hey, we should think about this. And I want to re-engage. I want to talk about that later on, maybe offline, with some things that we can do.
Well, I think the political climate right now and what we're getting potentially from DC and from the feds could help us in that argument.
Yeah.
So I think the timing's good on that anyway.
We're at an incredible moment in time.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yep. Exciting. All right. What did I just see is next? Climate emergency resolution. Not much to report here. Where we left off is, our task force drafted and approved a declaration of a climate emergency. We then discussed it with Eric Wellman and Marie Capriola. And what came out of that meeting is a desire to hire an energy manager to help us implement the resolution. And so I think Tom and Eric and Maria are working on it. I think Tom is going to present to the Board of Selectmen next month about it. So it's probably not going to move super quickly, but it does seem to be progressing. So that's another really exciting development, that if we could end up hiring either full-time or part-time energy manager.
That is so huge. That is so great.
We could get.
I gotta say, for Amy's benefit, our guest Susan has been instrumental in just continuing to push this resolution
Good for you,
forward,
Susan.
and just bringing it to everybody's attention and daylighting kind of the need for such a resolution,
That's great.
driven us to this point.
Yep. That would not happen without Susan's persistence, gentle persistence. Okay, energy plan. Was Katie? Did you work on the file since our last meeting? I think I noticed some changes in some.
It wasn't from me because my class just ended on Sunday. So I have 7 weeks of freedom, and I can work on that now until my next class starts.
All right, so maybe I'm imagining things, but
I didn't.
Wouldn't be
Phantom change.
I didn't do it.
What's that?
I didn't do it.
You didn't do it. Okay. So another positive development. Tom Roy is suggesting that we have a gathering of key stakeholders next month. People like someone from the Board of Ed, he mentioned somebody who does all the data systems for the town, some selectmen, key officials, and the entire Clean Energy Task Force. And we would start by presenting our draft energy plan, and then we would just brainstorm on things the town can do. And then try to fold a lot of that into the plan. So,
Okay, I love that.
isn't that great?
Oh, I love that idea.
That was Tom's idea.
Yeah,
And that's how you should do it. 2 years ago, we drafted this thing, and then we had a couple of meetings, right? We went to the Board of Finance and Economic Development and a couple others, but this would be a really great way to get sort of buy-in. So
Can I ask a question? Is it kind of like, it's a brainstorming session, and remember when we went through the charrette here in town? It's almost like that. It's like, bring your ideas here.
Yep.
And if you phrase it like that, it's a little bit more, could be more official and maybe more sort of interesting to people if they feel like their thoughts are actually going to be taken into consideration. I'm not suggesting you do a 3-day thing at all. I'm just saying, I think it's a great idea.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
I
let me-
don't,
Go ahead.
Mark, I don't disagree with that. I think that we may be in the space of, when I hear what Amy said, that's kind of a bigger thought. We may be in the space of, let's have a smaller, more insular meeting with key players in town organizations and use that to brainstorm some like one of the things I think this would be great for is the place where we talk about actions. We talk about our next 5 years, our next 10 years. It would be really awesome to get some consensus or even just some new thought around what those actions should look like. And then once we have a solid draft, then it is a subject for a facilitated, more open session with, townsfolk, businesses. I mean, that look, there's an upside and a downside to that, right? That can get unruly. There's going to be at some point we go away after that and have an adjudication with, okay, those were great ideas. Can these be in the plan? There's going to be some that make the cut, some that don't. And then there's always a risk of alienating people that had ideas that don't make the cut. So I'm totally into the openness of it.
Yep.
We just have to go into it eyes wide open. And I think we would probably be better off to start with a smaller group.
Is an inform forum where you share what you're doing and allow feedback a more equitable or a less contentious opportunity as opposed to soliciting ideas and then having to arbitrate between which get included and which don't?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I'm following you, Katie. So
That's okay. So if we came up with our plan and presented it and allowed comment, is that different than going forward and asking people to propose options that we then arbitrate between whether or not we include them?
it is different. I honestly would struggle. I could probably argue both sides of it, right? I would struggle with which is better. So in my work in the past, I'm a huge advocate of everyone being at the table. I think there's a very different vibe when you say to people, tell me what you think, recognizing that maybe not everything is going to make it in, than saying, okay, we off in this dark room, develop this. Now tell me your thoughts. I think people feel excluded when that happens. I do think it's more manageable that way, but that's not always the best yardstick. Does that make sense to you?
It does. I'm trying to avoid the meeting where folks think that we're starting from square one versus the meeting where we come with a framework and say, we've put a lot of thought into this, and now we'd like to take the temperature of the room. What do you think? What's your reaction to where we think we should be? And then you get the feedback that way, as opposed to, hey, tell us all your ideas. We're starting.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think what you're proposing there is kind of a hybrid between the two, right? It's not, here's our plan. It's like, we've been working on this. This is some stuff. Now, what did we miss? What do you think?
Yeah. Here's where we are. Here's the work we've put into it. It's your town. We want your feedback and your ideas.
Yeah, I think that's the right tenor. Amy, what do you think?
Well, you know what? We're going through something like this right now with the Energy Efficiency Board 3-year plan. I mean, we want to have input to the 3-year plan for the Energy Efficiency Board and for the Energize Connecticut programs that are happening for the next 3 years. But if we were to say, what do you think? Then we're going to be all over the road, and we're not going to actually get anything that I think is helpful to the process. So I think what Katie's saying is, and what you're saying, I think, is that it's a hybrid where you frame out the ideas, and then you say, you give people something to react to.
Yes.
It's not fully baked, right? Because that's what you're saying. It's disingenuous if you just say, here's our plan. Do you like it? I mean, that's a different question. So I think that makes sense. And I do think you have, and the other thing is that a lot of people, at least I think that a lot of people, energy is a very, very complicated thing. So, I'm not going to say something if I think I'm going to sound stupid. So if I have an idea, I'm going to give you my idea if I think it's going to make sense, but I'm not going to give you an idea if I have no way of knowing if it's going to be valid. So I like the idea of giving a framework and then having people react to that and give ideas. Maybe it's bulleted. I have no idea, but that's just, so what I'm trying to do on a state level is give advocates and stakeholders a draft and then say, what do you think about it? And if you don't like it, tell us why.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's where I'm coming from on that.
I think the way Tom pitched it a little bit is we would present the draft, and then people would kind of look and say, gee, what can we be doing in my area? Where are there potential savings or potential investments or efficiency improvements, things that we could do. And I think partly with the idea of then showing, gee, if we had an energy manager, we could get all this done.
Yep.
So I think this then I think gives us an extra impetus, motivation to get a good draft by next month. So let's go through. I spent some time today on this, and I'll send this around. What I would suggest is I'll send this around after the meeting. It's about 10 megabytes, so it should be emailable. And
Mark, why don't you just send the link to it?
I could do that. Yeah, I could do that too.
Then we
we'll
can
have
download it and rev it up and personalize our copies.
Yep. So I just love this picture.
Yeah.
So, and before we jump in, you may recall we were looking very closely at the West Hartford plan, and there was a lot of it that we liked. I ended up, they had a very different sort of core of the report. It was the plan. It was their sectors were residential, commercial, transportation, and clean energy. And it was a process of that they laid out, but I guess bottom line, I just liked what we did before, and we put a lot of work and a lot of thought into that. So I basically went back to the old format. So you'll see some new stuff from partly from West Hartford, partly from our updated energy analysis, but a lot of it should be familiar. So our goal again is 50% clean energy by 2030 and 100% by 2040.
Just a question, and that is the entire town. It's residential. It's everything.
Yep, it's everything. Yep. I'd love to do a greenhouse gas reduction goal, or but we just don't have the figures. We don't kind of have. I mean, there's different ways of doing this, but I think this is it's focused on clean energy. So there's two ways we're going to do that. Down here, this energy plan aims for 50% of Simsbury's energy usage to be clean and renewable and 100% by 2040. Fix that. Achieving these goals will require two parallel strategies. First, we must dramatically reduce the amount of energy we use, and then we must source this energy from clean, renewable sources, both local and regional. So West Hartford had added this page, which I think we all really liked. So I changed a little bit of the wording, but just kind of the context that we're in now is a very different one. So feel free to make comments as we're going, but also, as I said, we'll send this around, and then if everybody can go through it and send their comments to me, then at our next meeting, we could have a draft that's pretty much ready for our meeting. So I updated the analysis that leads to all these numbers. Not a lot new here. The upper right, the charts, there's something wrong. So we get data from the utilities every year of aggregate energy usage. And we expected 2020, the commercial figures to be lower, but we expected the residential figures to be higher. And for UI, they are, but for Eversource, we think Eversource just messed up with the data. So you can see, I don't believe those 2020 bars in the chart, but we're sort of following up with them. So but hopefully by the time we actually publish this thing, we'll have good data. 2 years ago, we produced 1.4% of our energy with solar in town. Now we're up to 1.7. And you can see, I love this graph down here because something happened in 2013 and 14. And that was our Solarize campaign, right? So this chart on the left, the waterfall chart, is familiar to you. The one on the right is new. This is comes out of this. We've made a lot of improvements to this PACE energy model, and this is an example. And you can see, I'll just what it shows is how we're going to get from where we are, which is total energy usage of, I mean, the number doesn't mean a lot to us, but 884 gigawatt hours. We're going to have to reduce our usage dramatically. And then from the bottom, we're going to start to deploy clean renewables. So starting on the left here, you can see almost all of our energy is coming from, the big ones on top: oil, heating oil, natural gas below that, gasoline from our cars, and then the grid. We've got the grid, and we've sort of mapped out, what the grid is. There's a lot of non-renewables, primarily natural gas. There's nuclear, and then a little bit of wind and solar at the bottom. And then over time, as we electrify and stop burning oil and gas for heating and cooling and gasoline in our cars, then all those dirty, two things happen. The dirty fossil fuels start to go away, and the energy usage goes way down because heat pumps and electric vehicles are just simply more efficient. And then from the bottom, we're deploying renewables. At the very bottom is local rooftop solar. Above that is local carports, which we can talk about. And then above that is other pieces of land where we think. So those numbers aren't set in stone, and we want to, I think, go back and look at those as a task force. And then above those, the white is grid solar, and the blue is grid wind, primarily offshore wind. So in the end, and the years don't quite tie up with our goals, but in the end, in this case, we're using much less energy, and it's all coming from these renewable sources. Notably, not all in town, right? The dotted line shows how much we think we can site in town, and the rest is going to come from the regional grid. I don't know if, feel free to critique this chart. I mean, it does take a little bit of explaining, but I think it's a lot of information on there. And the text above it tries to explain some of that.
Yeah, I don't think it's a difficult chart, Mark. I think it's an extremely, pardon the repetitive use of the word, graphic.
Is this aspirational or is this actionable?
Well, it's aspirational. I mean, look, it goes out to 2050. If you look at 2025, which is still 5 years away, the drop off in energy usage is minimal, which is realistic.
I guess maybe I'm asking if it's realistic.
That's a hard question to answer. I can tell you what it is. It's based on detailed assumptions, right?
Yep.
We've quantified, as we transition from internal combustion engine cars to electric vehicles, how much less energy will it use? And the same thing for heat pumps. We've looked at, we've produced, so there's a lot of assumptions in there, but it's not just kind of picked out of the sky.
Okay.
Bob, I think you missed the meeting where we went through that energy model. We should do it again because there's a ton of information in there. Maybe maybe our next meeting, we could walk through that again, because there's, we've got this, and you can just sort of lay bare all of the assumptions, including the economics of it.
Yeah, because that's critical. That's a critical piece.
Well, I just want to say that, to your question, Katie, is it aspirational? Is it actionable?
Yeah.
I think Mark's answer was very good. That depends. And that's usually what happens. And it depends on how well we do the work federally. It depends on how we do our work statewide. And I'll just give you an example. Right now in Connecticut, we have a bill called, it's 884, and it's Transportation Climate Initiative. If Transportation Climate Initiative was to get passed this session, we will have $89 million in 2023, where we're going to be able to put that toward the infrastructure, toward EVs, toward public transit, away from, the same thing that we've been doing over and over again. And that's what these graphs are kind of assume, right? So if we actually are able to put other policies in place from a state level and from a federal level, then our town level will be able to realize these. But your question's a good one, and it's what I think most people struggle with. I think this is where we lose,
Yeah, I asked it with the lens of just a regular, townsperson who's not very educated in this. And you look at this and you go, well, I'm going to have to give up my car. I'm going to have to get a heat pump. I'm going to have to do all these changes. How am I going to afford that? And this looks overwhelming and unrealistic.
Yep. And that's why I said this is where we lose people. So we have to be careful about that. And I think, the fact that we have such brilliant people in this room right now is awesome. But how do we actually translate it into how, we get regular sort of folks that don't do this all the time on board? And this is a struggle that I know I have every day with the work I do. We have legislators who are just regular people. They're not experts in energy. And so we have to go and say, we have to help people digest it and say, okay, this is what you're voting for. And we have to have those votes. And so it's incredibly important. I think what's so impressive about the work you guys have done already on a local level is you've really been able to bring the decision makers in town along. And I think that's a continued kind of effort. And what I'm excited about doing is bringing this to, the elected body that I actually interact with all the time, and that many of you all interact with all the time.
So the other wild card here, Katie, and I think this is, I'm sure there's assumption. I am looking forward to going through the energy model. Is if you think about the march of technology, right? I don't remember when the first iPhone was built, and I can't conceive of a world without it, but it wasn't that long ago. Where this thing pushes out to 2050, who can call what we're going to figure out by then? And I think Amy's quite correct, and it's about policy and it's about researching, like what is the research function of the federal government? These are big questions, what does the DOE do in the interim? There's a ton of stuff that is, I think, built into assumptions that we can reduce energy usage like that. There's no free lunch, there's physics, but it can get better.
Oh, I don't disagree with you on that. I'm just trying to view this presentation through the eyes of the people we need to get on board. And is there something that we can include on this slide or some explanation of where's this all coming from? It's not necessarily coming from your pocket or the town's pocket.
Yeah, I think, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong here, but we're going to get into that. These are kind of the overview slides at the beginning of the plan.
Yep, that's right.
There are much more specific, here's what we'll do kinds of things coming in the next few. These aren't really like presentation slides. This is the plan.
So I can't resist just touching on the economics. You see on this earlier slide, we said Simsbury spent $78 million on energy. Actually, this is not 2018. I'm going to change that. So, and where we got that is, we have our amount of electricity we use from the utility. We've got our natural gas figures here, also from the utility. This model that we have, we get the grand list data and we look at how many homes use oil heat. So we can produce an estimate of how many gallons of heating oil we use. We also know how many are heating with natural gas, so we got an estimate there. And then we get the grand list of vehicles and we make assumptions about what different classes of vehicles, how much energy they use. So, and then we apply a cost of each energy. And so we up with this number, 77. So we're spending $78 million a year, or over 30 years, that's $2.3 billion. So if you look at this graph, we could continue to spend $78 million every year, right? Or we can think of that 2.3 billion as a budget to build a better system, right? So, and we would cost 200 million to build out these local renewables, the 115 megawatt we think we can fit in town. It's going to cost 109 million to continue to build out the regional grid, the share of the regional grid that we would use. And we'll throw in another 35 million to build out some of the infrastructure. That number is probably low.
That's I was going to just say that number is probably real low.
We've got a budget of $58 million to convert our cars and buses and trucks over to electric. So, that's the premium of switching to an electric, right? So we're going to, hand that money out to people as they, and same thing, 117 million to transition from, fossil fuel heating and cooling to heat pumps. Until we we're not going to do this all overnight. So we're going to continue spending money on fuel. So over this 30-year period, we'd spend 1.1 billion. So the total is 1.6 billion, or 700 million less. And there, these are good faith estimates, but the graph I just love, because the elephant on that picture is the red. It's the fuel, how much we're spending every year, right? The cost of actually building these renewables and transitioning is actually small compared to what we spend every single year. And if we don't do anything, we're just going to continue to spend 78 million a year. And a lot of people, a lot of vested interests would love to have us continue to spend $78 million a year.
I agree. I mean, I think that's right. So it sort of goes to your point, Katie. It's like when you just explained what you just said, that's what you say. That's the graph right there. I mean, when you talk about it in real terms, and there aren't all these other kinds of things that people get freaked out by, then I think that's how you make your case. And it's got to be a lot more one-on-one almost, in sort of the group, sort of small group kind of talking and meeting with these decision makers that we have in our town, and breaking it down this way. I mean, that's an amazing graphic.
So we did that slide. So this is pretty much, we've taken a little bit from the West Hartford. So these sort of 4 strategies of input and equity, education outreach, participation and adoption, policy and planning. I liked the way West Hartford phrased that, but that was their model then for each of these sectors. So we're not doing that. So, so we have that approach, but then we have our 5 areas of action, and those are the same 5 that we had before. We can put a picture here. I think Tim was going to be taking some pictures in town, so maybe we'll get some nice, replace some of these pictures, and others, if you take nice pictures of things in town.
I have some. I just got to upload them to our file.
Super.
I have some.
Katie, I know you're into the graphics too. We need a couple icons here for heating and cooling. I couldn't find any. I'll ask Catherine Divinity. This was from the West Hartford, where she got these little white little icons here.
Okay,
so
I can do those too.
The next 5 pages are basically what we had before, and because we had put a lot of work into these, and I don't feel a need to sort of reinvent it. So I would say let's not go through in detail here, but what I've taken a really rough first pass at is updating some of our goals so we've got 2021, 22, and then 2030. I added this next slide. This is if we're talking about efficiency, here's some indicators of how we're doing on efficiency. And these are figures from the clean energy communities, from basically Energize CT. And the upper left, for example, shows Simsbury's participation over the last 11 years in these efficiency programs, right? The blue bar is HES, Home Energy Solutions. The orange is HES Income Eligible. Residential new construction is the gray. And the yellow is the total percentage of town residents that have availed themselves of these efficiency programs. And you can see we're actually doing better than the state average. Below that is similarly who's availed themselves of the rebates. And there's appliances, insulation, HVAC, and there too we're doing better. And upper right is business and municipal programs. There's a range of programs listed here. We're about on par with the state there. And then the lower right, Phil, thanks for getting that data, is residents' participation in energy assistance programs. You can see, I think we really want to focus on these programs. I think more. We want to really promote. We had a kind of a somewhat half-hearted efficiency program campaign a couple months ago. We really didn't do that much. We really want to be getting word out that these are programs we pay for in our electric bill each month. They're incredibly good investments. They're not, the HES is a $50 now, but it's a $700 to $1,000 value. Really pounding on these programs and the rebates for appliances, insulation, making sure people are aware of these. We do get
what people don't know is that they're paying into it.
Yeah.
What people don't know is that they're paying into this and they're not getting anything back.
Yeah.
And unless they do what I did, I had a HES assessment 9 years ago. And all of a sudden, insulation's free. So I went and I had $11,000 of insulation put in my house for free. So that's what people are missing. So what I'm wondering is if we did as the utilities do, but they don't do it very effectively because it's too broad. But if we did a very specific friends and neighbor kind of approach where you advertise, hey, what did you get? And it's really compelling. And you could put it on SCTV, you could put it on, there's lots of ways to do it. But these are the people I personally turned on at least 5 people to getting a HES assessment this past year. Just because I was like, you guys can't not do this. And so I'm wondering if, when we keep it local, which we're doing here, then we are more effective. And the data is there, just as you say. Look at our numbers. We are better at this than a lot of towns. Part of it's education level. Part of it's understanding things in a different way. Part of it is the effectiveness of the messaging that you guys have already done. True.
So we're going to come back to some ways of actually carrying this out. So again, I would say let's not go through this in detail together, but this is pretty much the same as we had before. It's heating and cooling. I've updated some goals a little bit, but there's more work we can do. Renewable energy, same thing. Transportation, and then microgrids. So take a look at those in particular. What we think we might do. And then there's this slide, which is kind of the bottom line. This is the, what are we going to do over the next year and a half? And then what are we going to try to do in the next sort of by 2030? And I know we had a list. I've made some updates here. We had a pretty detailed discussion on the task force of what we think we might be able to do. By the way, there's an extra slide I left in. This is from West Hartford, because there's a lot of good ideas here. They've done a really detailed. So I don't think I've finished, and I think we could all kind of look at these and let's sort of work on this. This is kind of the left side of this. This is what the task force will be doing over the next year. One, just to touch on your point, Amy, one thing I'm suggesting here is conduct a residential campaign to promote efficiency, heat pumps, and solar. And I wouldn't have thought to combine those, except what I've seen PACE is doing in Brantford. PACE is running this Heat Smart campaign, which is a campaign to promote heat pumps. And the way Brantford has done it is they start with HES, start with efficiency. And I think they've gotten close to 400 people do HES audits just because of this campaign. While you're talking to them about efficiency, tell them about heat pumps and tell them about solar, right? So I think there's value in potentially running a campaign that really addresses all of these. We need to promote CPACE. We have one CPACE. This is the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy. It's a way of financing larger commercial projects. We've had one done in town. So, a workshop, maybe get around to Rotary, Chamber of Commerce, talk about this. So what I would suggest is let's each of us try to spend a little time with this thing and maybe send me all of your edits, but I think that's pretty much it. There's some resources and I need to update that still. And then Ray, can you get me the size of the public works and the date of the public works solar? So if you all get me your edits to this, a couple days before, in advance of our next meeting, then we should be able to, get, I think, a good draft of this by then.
Sounds good, Mark. Thank you for doing that.
I seriously think you should be getting paid for what you're doing.
So do I.
Hey, it's not public audience.
Oh, sorry.
Actually, it is. It's open. It's a
So
forum.
listen, guys, I have another meeting, if you can believe it. So I'm going to have to go soon. I don't know how much more we have.
We're done.
We're done. We got other
Oh.
business, an open forum, and that's it. So,
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Anybody have any other business? Other than Amy?
No. Yeah.
so I'll send around a link to that, and let's just focus on getting this thing. We're going to still tweak it in the context of this larger meeting, but let's get a good draft done.
Well, let's go into the meeting with a good draft.
Yep.
Well, I just want to say how impressed I am by this group and everything that everyone's doing, and really glad to be a part of it.
And Tim's last picture that he wins the internet.
Well, we're in this zone right now.
That's who we're doing it for.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
So can I move?
Nice to meet you, Amy.
So good to meet all of you. And, I feel like we're going to be able to make some real moves here between Phil and me and others who are involved in other things. We have an election coming up, and if we start really using this as an election kind of criteria of, where do we stand as a town on energy? That's a really good one, because it could be part of people's platform, and then they're engaged. So.
Yep. Excellent. All right, motion to adjourn.
I'm so moved.
Second. Any discussion? All
So there's the discussion.
Bye.
Yeah, no, he's public audience. That's
All
public
right.
audience.
those
All
in
right.
favor, then cry.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Mark.
Bye.
Take care.
Love it. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.